it's Jane Perry. I just wanted to say a little hello, and I wanted to thank you so much for watching The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Super scary. World War Z, all those zombies, and of course the X-Files. Now, you might not know this, but I played the character responsible for the X-Files being called the X-Files. She was a secretary in the FBI bullpen in the 50s, and she ran out of room under U for unsolved cases, so she started filing them under X, as you can imagine. Anyway, I understand that you love horror, and so, because of that, I just wanted to give you some advice. Don't go out there. All the best. Bye.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. I really appreciate all the support. Before we jump into tonight's film review, I just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgooutthere.com. We've got everything about our podcast on our website. You need to check that out. We got all of our episodes, our interviews, our blog, our store. We have some new merch, and all of our stuff's on there. All of our social media links are on there as well. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We like to provide content on everything we can for you guys. We love interacting with our fans. We love chit-chatting with you guys. We can't get any better or answer your questions without your feedback, so we really appreciate it. And one last thing before we jump into the film review, I just want to give a quick shout-out to our blood donors. It's our version of Patreon. We have both. We have a one-time kind of donation where, if you want to request a movie for us to review, or if you want to come on our show, we have those tiers. And we also have the traditional monthly Patreon, reoccurring. It's nothing real expensive, but we have a lot of fans who ask how you can help us out. And that really does help us out to make a really good podcast, I think. And, we do a lot of giveaways too. So, I think it's definitely at least worth thinking about becoming a blood donor, because we take care of our fans. Let's jump into tonight's film review. This week was my pick. I chose 2016's The Autopsy of Jane Doe. It was a very tough decision to pick this movie because I had another movie picked for December. Last year I picked Saw 6, and I had Saw 2 picked for this week. I really love Saw 2, but I wanted to kind of change it up a little bit. I've been kind of, ever since we started doing our picks again after our blood donors, I've been trying to do stuff a little differently. And I really can't think of another movie like The Autopsy of Jane Doe. It's pretty damn unique. And the first time I ever watched it, it creeped me the hell out. And two of my co-hosts who hadn't seen it got creeped the hell out too. So I'm glad that, it's after you do 150 episodes and you watch horror all the time, it's hard to find movies that scare you or unnerve you or creep you out. So I think this one did it. And I really like this movie. Brian Cox is a legend. I think the acting is great. I think the portrayal of Jane Doe is great, and she doesn't even move or talk in the whole movie. Yeah. This movie is very unnerving, and I really like it. Brian, you want to go next?
Yeah. So, like you said, this was my first time checking this movie out, and now at this point, I've seen it twice, and yeah, I liked it. It's definitely an easy watch time wise, and I thought that it was very unique, and there's a couple of ways I wish they would have gone with a story to maybe keep me creeped out, but that's just a personal preference. Like you said, I think Brian Cox, who actually was originally played by Martin Sheen, which I'm so glad, honestly, that it worked out for the better. Let's just say that. And Cox does great as always, but I was really impressed with Emile Hirsch. Like he was great in The Girl Next Door as well, but I think Hirsch carries this, and I think he does a phenomenal job throughout most of it. I'll also say it, like Nico touched on, it genuinely did freak me out the first half of the movie, especially at first when I thought it was going to go demonic route. And it did some, but then it stopped and went the witch route and showed me a little too much. So it stopped scaring me. But again, that's just a personal thing with me, which we've gone, in depth pretty much with on the show. There's some fantastic shots, one takes, long shots. I mean, and I love all of that shit, but we'll get into all of that. So unlike Nico does with any good movie that I pick, I actually liked most of this movie.
Oh man. Okay, so I think I had seen this movie. I don't know, maybe the year it came out. Um, because it was on Netflix for a very long time, and I was honestly disappointed when I went to Netflix and it wasn't there. Because, spoiler, I like to watch movies on 1.5 speed, and that would have been super clutch. But that's okay. I had to watch it normal speed like the rest of you, which you peasants. But anyway, no, so again, upon a rewatch, I really do enjoy it. I think it's unique, like Nico mentioned. It's different from everything else we've done. There's not another movie to me that's like this film. You guys mentioned Brian Cox. He's fantastic as always. He's really, really good. To me, I love how the movie is a little confined to just these what ends up being basically 3 characters, and only 2 of them talk. I mean, once the girlfriend leaves, it's a father-son story, honestly, more than it is anything else. It's a father-son story that revolves around this weird corpse that they've found, or that they've come upon. And I think it's written really well. I'm not a huge fan of the ending. I think it's a little too. I'm not really into like haunting and stuff, so it's a little on the end, but the story itself is so gripping and so well done. I love, Brian mentioned some of the shots, phenomenal lighting throughout the whole film. This movie is lit, so it's not so much like a sterile atmosphere when they're dissecting the bodies either. There's like a slight blue hue to it that I think makes it even more creepy than it already is. And that room is so quiet once the music stops. You hear the lights up above, and I just love the atmosphere that brings to the film. You mentioned Emile Hirsch, love him in a lot of stuff. He's really good here. He's really good in Lords of Dogtown, which is a guilty pleasure of mine. I think is really good. He's good in that. He's good in Girl Next Door, which you mentioned. He's good in a lot of stuff. There's a movie where he goes into the wilderness. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's Into the Wild, but he's good in that as well. So again, really good cast, really small cast, which I appreciate. Ending a little flat, but kudos to the actress who played Jane Doe. She's phenomenal. All she does is lay there, and that I guarantee that was hard to do. There were times where I'm thinking that it's a dummy, and it's not a dummy. She's a real. She's laying there the entire time, and I got to give her a lot of credit for that because I sure as hell. Well, I guess if you paid me enough, you could probably make me do it, but it would be really, really difficult for me to pull that off. And speaking of being creeped out, person you see behind me was super creeped out when she watched this film. So she was hiding under blankets. So if you're a YouTube subscriber of ours, you see her in the back there. That's my lovely fiance, by the way. But she was freaked out over this film. Had to hold that. Our dog was probably holding on for dear life. But yeah, man, I'm excited to talk about it because, like you mentioned, Nico, there's not another film that we've done like it so far.
Good. Fuck this movie. And that's not to say that's not a good movie. I just did not expect this. I went into this movie completely in the dark. I'd never even heard of it until I saw Nico tweeting about it back when you were considering changing to this, and you asked, should I do Saw 2 or this? I'd never heard of it. I didn't look it up then. I didn't look it up before I pushed play on it. It was on Shudder, so I didn't really have to go to Amazon and rent it or anything. I just push play and it's on. And I like the cast a lot. Brian Cox, Emile Hirsch, really the only actors that we get to experience for the duration of this movie. They killed it. Emile Hirsch does such a good job of acting with his facial expressions. Like you can really see his emotion in the way his body language and facial expressions sell it, and I think that's a good sign of acting there. I don't think this movie's perfect by no stretch of imaginations, and we'll get into that when we do the scene by scene. I think that there's a couple things that just didn't work for me, but overall, it's a pretty decent movie. I won't watch it again. Fuck that. But it's not because it's not a good movie, and the runtime's great, 86 minutes. Bring me more of these. But yeah, I've watched it one. It's a one and done for me, but it's not because of quality.
I'm anxious to see if Dustin. I'm anxious to see if me and you agree on the same parts that we don't like or that we wish were different. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, there's some stuff that I don't like as well. Yeah.
And I also want to say, Mike, said that the ending didn't work because he doesn't like haunting movies. But then I just went back and looked. he gave the Conjuring
I
franchise an
know.
8.5, and 8.5. So I mean,
They're
come
my
on.
exceptions. They're my exceptions. They are truly my exceptions. I
Yeah,
have
I know.
4 exceptions. I have 4 exceptions. Those 3 and The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which I'm going to make you watch because I'm a glutton for
I've
punishment.
seen it. I don't need to watch it again. I watched it when it came out. I'll never watch it again. Fuck that.
Well, I'll be picking it someday, so just wait.
And Mike, the week after you pick that, I'm picking The Taking of Deborah Logan.
Do you really not want me and Dustin on the show anymore, guys? I mean, like, if you
I'm
want
just kidding,
that.
guys. I'm just
Hey
kidding.
guys, I just want y'all to know Rob Zombie has more movies.
I'm ready.
So-
Let's go. Let's go.
All right,
Let's go.
you can
And,
pick,
and there's Christine I can pick.
Don't pick the. Well, let's ease up a bit here. Let's, we don't
Pump the brakes. Pump the brakes.
we don't have to go. I'd rather
Maximum
you pick.
Overdrive and Christine.
No, thank you. I'd rather you pick 31 than both of those movies. That's how much I don't like those films. Anyway,
I've seen a couple of YouTubers make some film reviews. Just their thoughts on this. I kind of agree with them a lot too. I think like the first 2 acts are really good.
Yeah.
Then once you get to the end, it kind of gets to a little bit of some tropey stuff. I don't really care for. I like the ending,
Yeah.
but like the scene where they walk through the smoke and going back to
Yeah.
I didn't care for that part.
Yeah.
I feel like they were just trying for jump scares.
Yeah, shout out to YouTuber Ryan Hollinger. Does a lot of horror video essays. He had a really good summary on this film. I thought was really good. He's I don't remember where he's located, but he does a really good job kind of breaking this film down a little bit. Highly recommend checking that out. Check us out first, though.
Yeah, I watched Found Flicks. Definitely check us out first. And shout out to Found Flicks. I watched his. I really like Found Flicks.
Yep.
Any more opening thoughts before we jump into it?
Oh, let's do it.
All right, the film starts with I thought it was a cool title reveal with some dirt blown away, and it showed the title of the movie. We're now outside a suburban home with visual shots, and now we're inside with crime scene investigators. Blood is everywhere, and we see several corpses. Sheriff Burke looks out the window and sees the news like a news van show up. He gets a radio to come to the basement. They found a woman's body buried in the dirt. No ID on her and no relations to the victims. She's a Jane Doe. Lieutenant Wade says no signs of forced entry, but it's like they were trying to get out. Now we're inside Tilden Crematorium. We get visuals of the insides of the building. Very creepy, as expected. We now see Tommy and Austin doing an autopsy of a severely burned victim to some upbeat rock and roll music. Tommy asks Austin the cause of death. He says it's a softball. Now asks where did the cops find the body. He's quizzing him on the actual cause of death. Subdural hematoma was cause of death. Every body has a secret, Tommy says. He fell and hit his head. Austin's girlfriend wants to go see a movie, and he asks what's the last movie he saw in theaters. And Tommy says The Notebook. Tommy puts his coat on and goes outside to smoke through a cellar door. Austin puts bodies into the cold boxes. He hears noises, and we see Stanley the cat jump out the vent with a dead mouse. And I wrote, the man grabs a dead mouse with his bare hands. Disgusting. He calls for his dad to no answer again. Austin walks the halls and gets jump scared by his girlfriend Emma as he turns the lights off in the office. Emma takes a look around the morgue now. She walks into the autopsy room now. She wants to look around his work area. She asks to see a corpse. He says some things you just can't unsee. He says my dad's strict as he walks in. He tells her to pick a body. Austin opens a cold box, but she picks a different one. She seems disturbed now, and we hear a bell tied to the foot go off. She asks what's it for? To tell if they're dead. And he says he's a traditionalist. This corpse had almost no face left. Point blank gunshot. He says we only find cause of death. Leave the why to the cops and shrinks. Austin tries to stop Emma from revealing the face, but Tommy rings the bell and scares her. Austin and Emma get ready to take the elevator out, but the sheriff pushes a body out of the elevator. He tells Austin to go have fun with Emma. Austin tells Emma he needs to stay and help Dad because the sheriff's face looked very serious. He tells her he doesn't want to be the morgue worker. It's been 2 years. He can take care of himself, she says. He tells her 11 o'clock and he's all hers. She walks out and drives away. Sheriff shows Tommy some crime scene photos as Stanley the cat growls at Jane Doe's body. Sheriff says Jane is the priority. I'll bring the other bodies tomorrow. Press needs answers, and I got nothing, the sheriff says. Sheriff says it's got to be tonight. Tommy tells Austin he didn't have to come back as the sheriff leaves. All right, go ahead, Brian. That's the opening I got.
First off, and I'll say this, all throughout, the shots that director Andrew Overdale has in this movie really stood out to me. They're fantastic because, I mean, and it's what makes this movie so good. But you're enclosed in one area for most of the film, and that can make it really hard to get interesting shots. And at no time did I feel bored or repetitive. And that shit starts off right off the bat in this opening shot where the camera kind of spins you into a shot of that suburban house. It's blurred at first, but then it finally comes into focus, which I kind of took as maybe symbolism for like how this entire movie can flip you upside down, blur your vision, and then at the end slowly comes into focus. I don't know. Maybe I looked too much into that. But anyway, I thought it, so I'm saying it. And I don't mind it at all, especially because the runtime on this is a phenomenal hour and 26 minutes. Sorry to steal your thunder there, Mike, because I'm sure you love the runtime.
Best movie ever, baby. Best movie ever. Let's do this.
But do you really like need this opening scene? Besides to show, the family, spoiler alert. Why do we give spoiler alerts on here? Like the whole movie, the whole thing's spoiler alert. Anyway, besides to show Tildon's ending up the same way as this family ended up, couldn't you have just kind of started with the Tildons? I don't know. Now that I'm saying that, maybe you lose that true crime aspect of this a little bit more, which to me is the biggest part of this movie, and I love it. It helps ground it for me, and it really invests me. When the crazy shit pops off later, you buy into it. Also, shout out to friend of the show, Jane Perry, who played Lieutenant Wade. She did the intro for this episode for us. She was also in the X-Files and World War Z, a movie I'm definitely going to pick a little bit down the line.
Great movie.
Yeah, exactly. Then the scene transition. I promise I'm not going to point out every one of them, but the flash of the camera cutting into the light at the top of the room in the mortuary, I thought that was a great fucking shot. But to me, that's what just makes this movie like jump up a level to me is the shots. And hell, we get so much just from this opening shot of all the rooms in the mortuary. You get the layout, the family history, everything in just kind of like a 30-second intro with panning shots of all the rooms. And I know Emma isn't in this much, but she's us in the set of scenes, like without a doubt. Austin and Tommy do this shit every day. They're accustomed to everything. So Emma kind of getting shown everything, I thought was a brilliant, and dare I say in a Nico movie, meta way to kind of bring the audience into the nuances of the business and show us around some. So, hey, and I spoke to their phenomenal acting, but Austin and Tommy's relationship as father and son really pulls me in. It, it makes me empathize with the relationship with my own son and instantly has me. I mean, I'm a sucker for that shit. Plus, having two generations of characters here is so fucking smart, like writing wise, how it blends that modern and traditionalist type, thing and gives you a reason for the bell, for instance, that they wouldn't do that in modern times. And speaking of that bell, I think it definitely becomes its own character here. I feel like it was used amazingly, and I'll get more into that later, but I thought it was used great here as a setup joke, not just throwaway line. And messing with Emma, I think was a great way to kind of establish that, character development as well as loosen up that tension that you literally already feel from just the atmosphere of being in a morgue with these cats. And I meant that as a euphemism for these characters, not the literal cat Stanley. But, and that's the last thing I wanted to touch on. Being restricted to this morgue was so great because it contains that story. I'm sure it cheapened the budget a lot, but it also makes it more creepy. I mean, this is basically everyone's biggest fear when they're in a morgue or a funeral home, right? I mean, so I thought it was a great job with this set of scenes.
Yeah, I really like the opening, partly because of something you mentioned, Brian, and you weren't necessarily saying that you didn't like it, but maybe that it wasn't necessary. I liked it that the beginning is almost identical to the end. Like, I think that's kind of a cool way to tie the movie, back around to how it started. So I like this beginning. It sets up like a crime movie. And, we talked about the movie being very unique. This movie starts one way and goes a completely different direction than what I think when the first time you ever see it. You think it's going to be some kind of crime thriller and especially right here in the opening scenes where there's, an investigation scene here, and I think it's really well done. It kind of makes me think it's going one way, hey, what's going on over here on the right, and then something else is actually happening on the left. So I like that setup. I like this old house / mortuary. I think it's really cool. It makes for a very spooky atmosphere there. You know, you mentioned the shots, Brian. It's almost like you wanted to say it sets a good mood and atmosphere. Almost.
Almost.
No, that's a crutch. I'm trying not to use it. But as you can tell, this movie does do a great job of setting mood and atmosphere. Just saying. So I love, something else I love that you touched on too. This father-son relationship is rock solid, man. There is a lot of you could take it from either side. If you're a father, you could take it from the father and son side. If you're not a father yet, you can put yourself in the son's shoes and kind of relate to what he's going through, where he wants to help his dad. His dad's been through a lot, and then on the other side, you don't really want to carve up dead bodies anymore. Like, you're kind of over it, and you have this plan, and you want to go a different direction, but you're kind of scared to put your foot out there and actually make that step. And so I think we can all kind of relate to that a little bit, at least, where you might be under the shadow of someone else and you kind of want to break away. I think that's a relatable relationship. And I think that's why the movie works so well, being confined to this one space, to where you're kind of stuck with these two characters for the majority of the runtime. Emma being in here, I think it's a nice foil because, like you said, Brian, I have it right here. She reminds me of a viewer who just wants to see the cool stuff. She wants to open up the drawers. She wants to see the dead bodies. She's obviously spooked out by them. And, you touched on the bell. I love the bell because it's not just some throwaway thing. It ties into the entire film. Here it's used for humor. Later in the film, it's used for a completely different reason. And I think that works really well, that contrast there. I think, this isn't the best set of scenes by any stretch, but it does do a really good job of setting the narrative and pushing us forward. So, pretty solid set of scenes. And again, we touched on the acting. One more round of applause for basically what we're about to get. It reminds me a lot of I Am Legend, where it's Will Smith and a dog. It's these two and a corpse. That doesn't quite have the same ring to it as 2 Men and a Baby, but I think you get my drift. 3 Men and a Baby, whatever.
I too like the opening scene for a reason you said, Mike. It really ties in nicely to the ending. When we were introduced to the crime scene, I thought, okay, this is going to be like a Seven type movie. The Autopsy of Jane Doe. They're going to be trying to find out what happened, how she died, and they're going to be on the search for a serial killer. And I'm like, okay, I'm on board with that. I wish it had went that way. But then there was one quote in that opening set of scenes that it didn't mean anything to me at the time I heard it, but I remembered it distinctly while the ending is unraveling. It's when they said, there's no sign of forced entry or nothing. It looks like they were trying to get out. And, that's why I love that opening set of scenes, is because when you watch the movie, that's awesome. It's brilliant. It makes a lot of sense. I love, then we get to the morgue. I love the dynamic between father and son. They really do a good job of making it believable that they're father and son. And a lot of times they tell you that this is a father and son. They tell you that this is a family, but these two actually make you believe that they are. I hated the jump scare when Emma did the jump scare on Austin, and it's not because of that one. It's this movie's got a lot of jump scares, and most of them, I will say 98% of them, are very predictable jump scares. To me, at least, when I watched them, I was like, this is lazy ways to, keep the audience on edge. And it just, they were unnecessary and not executed properly enough to make me be like, oh, that was a good one. Damn, you got me.
It's almost like they didn't have enough confidence in their script, but it was amazing without those. Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
I'm glad you touched on that, Dustin, because really those jump scares, they're not needed because they do such a good job with suspense in other parts of the movie where I don't need those. Yeah, I don't need a scary cat noise. I don't need somebody jumping out from behind something. Like, they do a good enough job without those. So I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it's just, the movie is strong enough, the plot's strong enough to where you don't need those. And they did it way too many times. If there's one or two, it's okay. But there was like 6 or so, I think I counted. I'm like, this is just unnecessary. Going back to the dynamic, I also love the dynamic when they introduce Emma, because Brian Cox really acted like a dad, right? Like we've all had a girlfriend around a parent, and the parents like trying to be funny and stuff and joking, and like you could see it in his face, like he was getting such a kick out of fucking with her in the morgue. And so I was like, man, that is dad material right there.
That is Mike Settle Sr. in a nutshell.
I really love that that acting that Brian Cox did there, that set of scenes. And I like the bell on the ankle. At this point now, I had no reason to believe that the bell's going to come back into play, but the seed was planted in my mind. I was like, it's just weird that they made such a. Now I get it. He fucked with her. He jingled the bell to scare her, but still, I was like, it's weird that they included that. Like they were very specific about explaining why the bell's there and everything. So the seed was planted, and so that made the payoff even better to me when the bell come into play. And yeah, I mean, the set of scenes does a good job. He should have got the fuck out of there. He should have went to the movies with his girlfriend. And I'm not saying because of the events that unfolded. I'm just saying as a boyfriend, don't ever say, don't ever take her word for it when she's like, it's fine. You'll make it up to me. You're lucky you're cute or whatever she said. Because if the events hadn't unfolded, if it had just been a regular autopsy, he'd still been in deep shit, and it probably wouldn't have been worth it. But overall, it's a solid set of scenes. I don't know where we're going yet, but Emil Hirsch and Brian Cox do such a good job of acting that I'm in no matter where we're going. So I liked it.
It's almost like, Brian Cox being in this profession, he almost has a brave heart. Sorry.
Oh, Lord of mercy. The only thing I was going to say, Nico, before you go, like this movie is graphic and gruesome as hell, but it's not. If that makes sense.
Yes.
I guess it's because it's in the context of the funeral home. It's not like, I don't know, Hostel, for example, or something where it's just, I don't know. I mean, in
medical gore. It's medical gore.
Right. In this sense, it doesn't bother me or even make me cringe to see it. It didn't even come across as gruesome or graphic until you like are really watching it like, oh, wow, this is a pretty gruesome movie.
Yeah. And also, for the cop to be bringing the body by at that late hour like that, I mean, he really was a super trooper.
Hostel's a movie we need to do next year sometime.
Almost like he was a manhunter as well.
Did you say Super Troopers is a movie we need to do next year? I'm in. I mean, it's not really the genre, but I'm in.
Hostel.
Oh, Hostel.
Yeah. Oh, goddamn. All right. Rock music picks up again as Tommy and Austin take on Jane Doe's autopsy. He starts the camera recording. The autopsy will be 4 stages. The radio says beautiful weather as Austin takes photos and says she appears mid to late 20s. Everything seems normal until they see her gray eyes. Things aren't adding up with Jane Doe. Tommy notices now that her wrists and ankles are fractured with no outward signs. Tommy checks under her fingernails. It's Pete. Hasn't seen it in ages. It's found up north, not around here. Her nose and ear canals are all clear. Austin opens her mouth and her tongue is severed crudely, not surgically. I've seen something like this before, Tommy says. He draws on the chalkboard of a case 15 years ago. Austin goes to take more pics, and her nostril moves around, and blood comes out. A fly flies out of it. Tommy discovers a molar missing now, and he pulls out a piece of fabric. We hear thunder rumbling now. No pins are working for Austin, as he takes Tommy a swab to check for seminal fluid. She's torn up inside, he says, deliberate cuts. Austin says his dad's theory tracks so far. Now the internal examination. Heart and lungs. The lights flicker and the radio plays a woman screaming, and now we hear an old-timey song on the radio about letting the sunshine in. Tommy cuts open Jane Doe's body and blood pours out. Austin says they're not supposed to bleed like that, right? Only on fresh corpses, Tommy says. Austin puts a blood sample in the fridge. Tommy sees possible melanoma on the inside of her skin, so they take a lab sample. Austin walks back to the fridge and sees blood all over the floor as Tommy asks for the rib cutters. It's Jane Doe's blood sample dripping everywhere. Tommy says Austin's right. Her waist isn't right for her frame. Not congenital. Maybe she wore a corset. Tommy now cuts the rib cage, and we see severely blackened lungs. He takes a sample, and he says he'd expect to see third-degree burns with these type of burns. He removes the heart, and it appears like it's been cut. We now see possible scar tissue, but from what? With her internal injury, she should be completely mangled, but she's not. Tommy says you make someone suffer with these type of injuries. Austin hears a noise and goes to check it out. He walks the halls as Tommy looks at Jane's crime scene photos. Austin sees like a woman's figure in the hall mirror by the roof, but no one is there. "What happened to you?" Tommy asks. Tommy cuts himself on a bone, and Austin goes into a room he hears noises in. He checks the vent and opens it up. He listens and is startled and falls off the chair. His dad walks in and asks if he's okay. Austin removes the maimed Stanley. Tommy takes the cat and breaks its neck, putting it out of its misery. He now places it into the furnace to dispose the body. Tommy asks for a minute to be alone because the cat was sentimental. All right, go ahead, Brian.
One thing harkening back to Austin and Tommy's relationship, like when the sheriff snaps at Austin and is like, I got 4 people dead, no idea how it connects. Tommy actually takes up for his kid in that situation. And I don't know why, but that really stood out to me. I mean, it really gave me so much character development without a ton of dialogue in my eyes anyway about the relationship. Um, and am I the only one that as soon as that, because you're watching that corpse so closely, as soon as her nose started moving, you're that Leonardo DiCaprio meme, like jumping up in front of the TV, like, oh, like pointing at it. Thinking you caught Owen Catherine Kelly moving around or something. But speaking of her, I want to really definitely speak up for her. I mean, we touched on her a little bit, but while watching this the first time, I mean, obviously there are some parts that are special effects or a prosthetic, but man, my thoughts directly were like, how did they do this? If this is a prosthetic, it looks amazing. And then after the movie and doing the research, finding out the majority was Owen Catherine Kelly and the fact that she used yoga skills to help her control her breathing. Look, shit, props to her. She may have had honestly the hardest job in this entire set. Yes, playing dead the entire time with close-ups on your face, your body, but also being naked the entire time. I mean, that reminded me of our interview with Serena Vincent, don'tgoouthere.com. When she was on Not Another Teen Movie and just how difficult and self-conscious that can make an actress in that position. Huge props to Kelly there. And again, back to the cinematography from Overdale, especially when they open her eyes, like those close-ups, like those first person shots of those eyes. And it kind of gives you as the audience, so many emotions. You feel sorry for her, as we go through all of this stuff. And, they talk about the abrasions all inside of her and this whole mystery unravels. You feel for like what this girl's gone through. But also, I mean, shit, the tension and fear it builds up. I mean, while they're working on this, through all of these things, like you get her blurry in the background and that tension of just, okay, is she going to sit up? Is she going to start moving? It's pretty much here when they set that tension in the atmosphere and it doesn't let up the rest of the movie for you. It has you. And the sound effects, you get that almost bone tomahawk feel with the sound mixing, like that dry cracking of the bones, even that whole wet sound when they open her eyes. Without the sound mixing in this movie, I'll just say, like, I think it makes or breaks it. I mean, it definitely intensifies everything, if nothing. The music, that radio, the creepy "Open Your Heart" old church choir song. How often do we talk about how creepy old records are in horror movies? And lastly, I also love the, I don't want to call it a red herring because at this point it's still a mystery, but the possibility that was brought up about it being human trafficking. Like, as an audience member, you're once again grounded in reality and are like, oh, okay. But I'm really drawn into that whole mystery, of this whole thing, which is my favorite part of the movie. To me, it outshines the horror elements we get later, if I'm being honest. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. You go right into when they start this autopsy. You notice something's off the very first time you watch it. You don't quite know what until you get a really good look at the eyes, and they're not like any other eyes that you've seen. So you get that right off the bat, and as a first time viewer, you're like, this is odd. This isn't what it's supposed to be like. You mentioned the nosebleed and the bug coming out or whatever that is, and that is so well shot. It's not play. Sometimes that stuff would almost be too hokey, too over the top, but I really thought it was done well because of the acting on the other end, how they reacted to it. Like, I think that they were genuinely not scared, but mystified almost. Like, what the hell is this? And you can tell these are two guys that have seen it all. They're numb to a lot of stuff. And I think they play it like that until shit hits the fan. And I think that's just a really good job of writing those two characters to where they're really numb to a lot of, they're willing to write off almost anything until you can no longer write it off. And I think that kind of shows with the bug there. And look, I the effects right here of the body parts in this scene really stand out to me. The black lungs that look like really bad smoker lungs. I think those look good. The scar tissue, very well done with great detail, great attention to detail. I mean, just like making the body parts look how they're supposed to look. This all looks very authentic to someone who doesn't know any different. I think it looks really good, and I'm sucked into that. You get a lot of father son. We mentioned it. You get a lot of father son here, and I think as much as he wants to help his dad, he's giving off that feeling of I don't really want to be here thing, and his dad kind of is like, "Hey, man, you can leave." And I know that doesn't happen yet, but hey, we finish what we start kind of mindset. And you can tell the dad's not annoyed by his presence, but almost annoyed at the fact that he's rushing him a little bit, trying to say, oh, it must have been, inhalation of smoke or whatever. But I think it's fascinating the way this movie's written, where she has no outward, no outward abrasions, no bruises, no scrapes. Obviously you could tell her hands and feet were tied or whatever, but there's outside of that, there's just nothing on her body that would let she had been tortured or anything like that. And I think, that combined with the father-son dynamic that we get here, really love this set of scenes because, like you, I'm into this mystery. I want to know as it goes on, what is this person's story? And again, I have some thoughts on the ending that we do get. But the first time you see it, my mind's going everywhere. Well, maybe it is human trafficking. Maybe she's an alien or, whatever. Maybe something's about to pop out of her chest like the Thing. I don't know. One thing this set of scenes to me, the icing on the cake, what makes this a great set of scenes, and it's done throughout the whole movie, the suspense they use to make you constantly think Jane Doe's about to wake up and pop up this table. About to do a full Undertaker-style sit-up and fuck shit up. That's the suspense that they play on the entire film, and it starts right here because we're so used to horror tropes like that person's dead, that person's dead, that person's dead. Surprise, motherfucker, I ain't dead. That's what we get from a lot of horror movies, and you don't get that here. I think that's what this set of scenes is all about. To me, it's just that hyping up the suspense, turning it up just a little bit more, and I think it's a really solid set of scenes.
Yeah, I completely agree there. This set of scenes is a lot of hype building. It's doing a lot of setting the tone for what's to come and making you wonder and making you guess. I really love the dynamic of them doing the autopsy. They're rocking out, and you could tell that even though the son wanted to leave and he doesn't really want to be there, you could tell that he enjoys working with his dad. So again, do a great job of building that dynamic, which makes something that happens, and we'll get to why I keep bringing that up. It makes it even more meaningful. You see a lot of weird shit going on with this autopsy, right? You got the tongue, the vaginal stabbings that was happening. The lungs are all fucked up. The heart. It's really what the hell? And then when they made the incision and the blood starts pouring out. I think they did a great job there of really making you wonder, what the fuck is going on? I did think, though, one of my gripes with this movie is I think that they take the cheap way out a lot of times. When, the corset thing. So he mentions the corset could have been the reason why her waist doesn't match the frames, whatever. And then he's like, didn't those go out of style, a couple hundred years ago? It's do we really need that? I don't think that. I think in their mind, I think it's one of those things that sounded better as an idea than the execution allowed for. Could have just left that out, because I don't know about you guys, but if you see someone who's just got a skinny waist, is your mind going to automatically go to, oh, it's like she's been wearing a corset? Oh, speaking of, no one's worn one of those in 200 years.
My mind goes to, I'm looking for a dime that's top of the line, cute face, slim waist with a big behind. That's where I go.
my mind's going to this chick's been down to see Dr. Miami. She's got her tummy sculpted, and it is what it is. I don't think she's been wearing a corset and those went out of style a couple hundred years ago. Like that was just cheap to me. But like you said, Brian, and like you said, Mike, they do a great job of just creeping you the fuck out in this scene because there's a horror movie, even if you don't know the direction we're going, even if you haven't picked up on there's some supernatural shit's about to happen. Just having the body be in the background of these shots, like you said, out of focus, is creepy. And it does make you wonder, like, is this body going to sit up and attack them? What's going on? The radio's changing on its own. All of a sudden, we got a storm rolling into town, which is never a good thing. If you find yourself in a situation that you feel like it might be, am I in a horror movie? Is that what's going on right here? If the weather starts changing and getting bad, get the fuck out. That means it's about to get bad for real. The lyrics to that song are just creepy as shit. I don't know why the hell they kept working. I would have left right then, even if they didn't, have any other reason to believe. But if the radio changes on its own and the song's talking about don't let the devil in and keep the devil out and all that shit, I'm like, Dad, you know what? Emma just texted me. She said her car broke down. She got a flat tire. I gotta go, and I'm out. Fuck that. But they do it. This is a great set of scenes as far as building suspense. Not a lot going on, but not a whole lot going on, if you will. Like there's not a whole lot for us to break down. It's a lot of building.
If that song or Tiptoe Through the Tulips ever comes on accident, I'm running the other way. Nope. See you later. Bye. Also, in the first set of scenes, there's a woman that dies by mesothelioma, and I couldn't help but think of how you or someone you love.
You were a loved one. Exposed to asbestos.
Hey, and also, can we talk about that shot that was like, it was through that circular hall reflector of the figure standing there? Holy shit, like that's a fucking amazing shot. Like that's creepy as hell, I thought. Plus, just having the dynamic of that mirror, that hallway mirror thing, and I thought it was great.
Also, hot take, I could have done without the cat entirely. All right, let's move on.
Oh, yeah. I completely, that's the last thing on my notes is the cat. Did it really serve a purpose? Like, I get it. Like, when you get to where we're going and you find out that, she's wanting to make you feel what she feels, spoiler alert, like Brian said, I know this whole thing's a spoiler alert, but to jump ahead a few scenes here, they come to the realization she's wanting you to suffer and feel the pain that she's felt, whatever. Did the cat really do any of that? Did it advance the storyline at all? No. Only thing it served was another bullshit jump scare. That's one of the jump scares that I was talking about. What? Why? It's cheap. Be better.
Agreed. Exactly.
The cat was there just to make Tommy feel sentimental whenever it passed away because it was his wife.
Now, I do agree with that. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's the only thing
I know, but was it? But I'm saying, was it necessary? You're already gonna.
No, I'm with you.
Have a lot of sympathy and empathy towards both of them. We don't need anything added to it. It's just it's cheap. It's cheap in my opinion.
Well, to bring them up, you brought them up too, like that. You're right. I mean, I think that is, and I also think they missed an opportunity of making you feel a little bit more empathetic towards them because they just barely even bring up the fact that the mom committed suicide, I guess, by depression. They really get into that. No. But I mean, if they would have gotten into that a little bit more, I mean, I think that would have helped with that empathy a little bit more too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, we get in the opening set of scenes that we discussed, he's talking about he had to stay because he couldn't leave his dad. And she says, it's been 2 years. He can handle it. He can take care of himself. And then they just abandon it for a while. And then we get the seminal shit with the cat. And then they abandon it for a while. And then we have to wait until shit gets real bad before we learn that she was living with pain every day. But they still don't come out and tell you exactly what went down. And I think they really should have capitalized on that. Like they left a lot of meat on the bone there.
Agree.
Yeah, I agree. The elevator scene is good between them, but I agree with you, Dustin. They could have attacked that plot, that side plot a little better. Austin walks out and looks at the mirror again and sees nothing. He goes back into the autopsy room and one of the cold boxes opens up. He walks over to it and Tommy asks what's he doing. And like Dustin said, if I feel like I'm in a horror movie, I'm getting out of there. He says he must have not closed it all the way. Tommy says Stanley was one of the few things he had left of his mother, despite it being a pain. Stage 3 of Jane Doe's autopsy. Stomach and gastrointestinal time. Austin says, "You can talk to me," but Tommy says he's fine. Tommy cuts open the stomach and pulls out a Jimson weed. It's a paralyzing agent. She's from up north, he says. The thunder gets more intense, and the guy on the radio says there's gusts up to 60 miles per hour. Austin says we should leave and finish it in the morning. Tommy says Burke needs it tonight. If you want to leave, leave. Tommy now finds a piece of cloth with a molar. The cloth has an old shroud on it. They now see Roman numerals on it. Austin looks at the fabric under the microscope and determines it's Jane's molar. They now discuss the scenario of her death. Austin says it's like a human sacrifice, it seems. The guy on the radio now says a flash flood warning. Tommy says you can't kill someone like this without any external markings. One thing's for sure, you're not going anywhere, the radio says, as that creepy song comes back on. Austin says we need to get out of here. Tommy keeps working. He cuts back on the skin more, and they peel it all back and reveal writing and markings underneath her skin. A cold box door opens again, and the lights flash and the bulbs explode. It's pitch black, and we hear the rest of the doors fling open. Austin gets a flashlight and finds Tommy. He says, "Let's get the fuck out of here." Yeah, I agree with you. They exit the autopsy room, and the generator kicks back on. The elevator doesn't have enough power to be used. They try to escape through the cellar door, but the old sycamore tree fell on it. Austin has no cell signal either. They get to the office to use a landline. Tommy calls the sheriff's department and tells them it's an emergency, but the call is breaking up. He tells them to get over here now, and the call breaks up all the way. They hear a bell jingling outside the door. Austin looks under the door and sees a corpse's foot walk up. It now beats on the door as they block it off with a filing cabinet. "What the fuck's going on?" he asks. He says it's got to be Jane. Tommy says she's just a corpse. Tommy goes to clean up his wound in the bathroom, and he notices the shower curtain blowing around. He goes to check it out, and Austin sees a shadow in there, but nothing. Tommy is now grabbed from behind, and the door slammed. Tommy is bashed around, and a corpse is on top of him, attacking. It escaped through a door as Austin breaks in. Austin now treats his injuries, and he says the thing that attacked him had her gray eyes. He says with everything that's happened, we're way past possible. Tommy asks, well, what do we do? All right, go ahead, Brian.
Yes. So this set of scenes is where the movie to me really starts to show its strong points. And with these things happening, with the cold box coming open, the finding the shroud with the satanic markings on the skin, beautiful shot and effects on the skin, by the way. It's where I really am starting to like, okay, like this movie is starting to bother me because, I think we're going the demon route. And if you wanted to freak me out, okay, that's the way to do it. I even at this point is when I texted in the group chat, and Dustin had already, as he mentioned too, but I was chastising Nico for not warning me about demons being in this fucking movie. And I know Overdale talked about The Conjuring being a big influence on him. And this movie, I mean, you can tell, but also, like I said in the Conjuring review, I think that after this set of scenes is where the movie starts to fall short a little bit for me. Like we say all the time, your mind can create something more terrifying than anything that you can show me. And these little bits and pieces of what you think is the demon in the pitch dark, is terrifying. And then you just hear that fucking bell. I mean, it works fantastic. It's where they start going the route of showing the dead bodies, and giving me all those typical horror tropes. That's where it starts to lose me a little bit. I thought it was a little bit different. And that's one of my critiques of The Conjuring as well, if you remember. I don't need to see this thing. Let me continue to be terrified by the images in my head or the little glimpses of only parts of the entity, quote unquote. And no, it doesn't do this in this group of scenes, which is why I love this group of scenes. It's my favorite in the whole set of the movie. Now, some negatives and something else that kind of took me out of it a little is when Austin writes the Roman numerals on the board, you can clearly see the erasing of the previous takes where he's written the same Roman numerals in the same spot, and all they did was just erase it. I don't know if you didn't notice that, go back and watch it because I saw it immediately, and I was like, wait, what the fuck? And the phone call, you couldn't hear anything that Tommy was saying, but you heard him say, put Burke on the line, yeah. And also the exchange between Tommy and Austin after being attacked. I didn't get the emotion I needed to get from, especially Emil Hirsch in that scene. The dialogue I felt like was on point, but the emotion I didn't feel like what I needed to see from Austin in that situation, given what all just had transpired. And last thing I wanted to really point out is the close-up shot of the book. When they're looking up that plant, the blurred out words, except for what you needed to read. I mean, now you got to read that shit quick because it cuts quickly to Tommy writing on the chalkboard. But I really loved that shot and how they did it as well as a shot through the mirror of Tommy lifting up his shirt to kind of show the bruise to Austin. Now, at first, on my second viewing, well, not at first on my second viewing, that didn't make sense, but now like on my second viewing, I was like, wait a second, that bruise is on the wrong side. But then I noticed it was shot through the mirror, which made sense. But I appreciated the shot even more, not even realizing the first time that it was, through a mirror. So anyway, that's all I had.
Hey, before you go, Mike, I did like whenever they're trying to knock the door open, the freak out by Brian Cox, the help me with this. It just reminded me of like him in Trick or Treat when he was freaking out.
Oh, yeah.
Every movie needs a good Brian
Yes.
Cox freak out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So to me, this is me and Brian are in agreement here, going back to the old days of the show, where I think this is the set of scenes where the movie peaks a little bit because they're finding all this stuff inside her body. And yeah, there's some supernaturally things, some unexplainable things going on around them. The storm, the music, whatever. But I wasn't necessarily thinking that the movie was headed the direction that it's going. I just thought, oh, well, these are creepy things. It's a horror film, whatever. But they're finding all this stuff inside her body. They find the string. They find the cloth with the messaging on it. The flower, which I think, by the way, you mentioned that is so... That being in the script in and of itself is really interesting to me, really unique and different. I thought, that being, something that would paralyze her, not something I knew going into the movie, and now I know. And I think that's rather fascinating to me. So there's a lot of good here. Even the stuff that gets a little bit trippy, lights break, all that stuff, I think is shot really well, very suspenseful. I want to know what happens. However, towards the end of this set of scenes, we get a little tropey. We get a little not Conjuring light, because I think that makes me sound like I'm slandering The Conjuring, which I believe, as Dustin pointed out, I give like an 8 and 8.5, whatever it was. But to me, it's a little bit of Conjuring light, for lack of a better term, where they're just kind of using... Now, they hide it better here, which, Brian mentioned. They hide it better here, but you get a lot of moving around, loud noises, and so now we've officially crossed over into demonic or ghostly territory by having the door shut, slam on Tommy, being attacked by one of the corpses. Like, all of that, we've officially crossed over, and that's what this movie is now. And I gotta say, and I know I've taken some crap on the interwebs for this. Sorry, but I don't believe in ghosts and I don't believe in demons. And when that crossed over completely, I was a little let down by that, because I think the mystery aspect, and there's still mystery to it. I don't want to be all negative, but the mystery aspect of it to me gets lost a little bit with that, because now clearly we know, or we think we know, that this Jane Doe is running the show here. Obviously, there's something wrong with this corpse. Something's odd. There's satanic symbols and stuff all in her body and on a cloth, whatever. And so, that kind of let me down a little bit. Now, scenes are shot really well. The acting's good, but I just don't like where the script ended up going. So, first half of the set of scenes, I love it. The second half, I think the movie starts to teeter off just a little bit. Still pretty good, but as far as me being scared or whatever, I think it kind of loses a little bit of its luster, in my opinion.
All right, Tommy and Austin exit the room now and head back to the autopsy room. They see all the cold boxes open. Everything they took out of her rapidly decomposed. Tommy says, let's get her to the crematorium, but the door locks on its own, locking them inside. Austin takes an axe to the door, and he's jump scared by a face with sewn up eyes and mouth. He says, fuck it, and they light Jane Doe's body on fire. The fire spreads to the ceiling, and then it burns up all the evidence, the camera, the pictures, everything as the fire goes out on Jane's body, not burning her at all. They now hear the elevator. The door opens and they head to the elevator. They make it to the elevator, but it closes before they can board. We now see a corpse walking towards them down the dim hallway. Tommy grabs the axe as it gets darker and darker as the corpse gets closer and closer. They board the elevator, but they lose power as they try and take it up. Tommy takes the axe and hacks the corpse once it gets to the elevator door. They now realize it was Emma who he chopped, killing her. Tommy and Austin are devastated. He apologizes to his broken son and pulls him on the elevator. The doors close and and the elevator malfunctions again. Tommy now sees bad wounds on his core. Austin and Tommy talk now. Tommy says this is my fault. They now talk about his mom. He called her Ray because she was his ray of sunshine. If I'd have known, I'd have helped her. He should have seen all the pain and unhappiness she carried every day. You had to pay for them, he tells his son. We see the furnace turn on now, and Austin asks why she hasn't killed us yet. When we cut into her, she tried to stop us. There's something she doesn't want us to find, Austin says. Tommy asks if he wants to go back in there. He says we need to find out how to stop her. They exit the elevator, and Austin embraces Emma one last time as Tommy covers her face. They walk through the smoky hallway. They keep moving forward, and Tommy is attacked now as he loses Austin. Austin finds his hurt dad and helps him to the autopsy room. They seal the door off and remove Jane's skull. The brain is normal, and they take a sample of tissue. Austin is shocked to discover her brain cells moving around. They couldn't find the cause of death because she's still alive. Austin says, we lit her on fire. We removed her heart. And then Tommy says, there's some type of energy keeping her alive and going. And the next two scenes are the ending. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so I mean, right off the bat, you definitely get The Shining and even some Psycho vibes with the whole axe and looking through the hole in the doorway. But like I said with the less is more thing, this is a good example. Like when Austin looked through and you get the jump scare with the like skin you see, perfect. I mean, although I'm not really sure I got the reaction from Austin there that I wanted either. But then you get Tommy look through and it shows the mouth, it shows almost the whole face. It's just too much for me. Like this is where it stops being scary for me for sure. I'll say that. Also, wow, Tommy with putting out that huge ass room engulfing fire in like 2 seconds with a fire extinguisher. Okay, but yeah, I think he should have maybe played that out a little bit more and not had the other part of this, which is my least favorite part of the movie. Just because it doesn't seem realistic to me, or at least it's the part that it didn't resonate with me anyway. I just don't buy Emma being out in this huge hurricane force wind. And, and even if you did go the route of, okay, she's out, she was worried and coming to check back in on them route. But this is almost the same criticism I had with the strangers. As soon as you have the elevator, which by the way, I thought didn't have enough power to work, by the way. So, okay. But once you hear it ding, my first thought went to Emma coming back. Like even on my first watch, I don't buy Austin never even considering it being her, and not to yell out. Why does Emma not yell out at all to them? Like, unlike the friend and the strangers, if you're her, you don't have any reason to be sneaking around. Like no threat of home invasion that you think of or anything like that, right? I mean, why are you not yelling out? Is the demon suppressing it? And if so, like, why aren't we seeing that in sort of like a flashback? Like, what was that movie that we did, the mirror movie with Katie Sack? Oculus. Like, something like that. I kept wanting to call Oculus Oracle for some reason, but how Oculus kind of showed like what really happened if you're going the route, if you're going that route, like,
Ew, Oculus. Ugh.
Or maybe the witch or entity or whatever suppressed the yells, and you may be implying that, since we got the fact that Tommy saw the zombie body that was shown to him, so obviously they're going the route that the witch can project these images or things. It just didn't resonate with me this way. Like I saw it coming a mile away. There was just too much suspension of disbelief for me to buy into it. If it's going to be done like this, I don't think that it needs to be in the movie. I don't know. And even so, I don't feel like that after this, it was really made to matter a whole lot. Like, like in Strangers, I remember even saying, holy shit, like if they get out of this, you literally just murdered your best friend. But here, I just never felt that emotional draw for some reason. In the moment, Austin does great. but it's literally forgotten about in like 2 seconds to me. Just I don't know, just cut it in my opinion. I just don't think it works. And lastly, I wish Jane Doe would have been some sort of, I don't know, some sort of maybe like vessel for a demon or something. I just like the witch stuff and the brain activity part, and them saying that she's still aware of what's going on. I just didn't care for the direction that it kind of took moving forward here. That's just me. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to get right to Emma's death because to me that is something that I think comes into the ending of the film. Had Austin lived with the weight of Emma's death and then what comes later, I think that would have been more impactful. More sad, obviously, yes, but I do think we would have felt it a little more as a viewer. And like Brian mentioned, we're kind of, and Emile Hirsch, great acting there in that moment. He's very emotional. The crying is good. Like, I think it's awesome. And you could tell he's devastated in the moment. But after that moment, we kind of move on. And I think that's a disservice. Now, we don't spend a lot of time with Emma, so I kind of understand she's the third player or the fourth player, really, in this movie. But I
go back to the strangers with that. Like, we didn't spend any time with the friend,
absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
we still just had a different emotional impact for me.
Yes. Yeah, totally get that. And I tend to agree. First of all, if I go back to that autopsy room and see all those doors open, again, I'm digging a tunnel. I'm busting through the roof. I'm getting the fuck out of there. No, thank you. There's a bunch of corpses running around. Fuck out of here, man. But I love the look on their faces when they realize, oh my God, all these corpses are out. I think it's really good. So this is again where the movie starts to teeter a little bit for me. I mentioned it in my previous set of scenes here, but to me, this is where I wish if everything stayed the exact same and they go a little bit of a different direction with it, I think I would have been on board because you mentioned the brain activity. To me, that's kind of smart. I like that if where they go with it is a little different. They talked about maybe her being kept alive by some kind of energy or whatever, but I think it's a pretty cool visual and a pretty cool thing. Like, oh, she still has this brain activity. What? And even then they kind of sucker me back in a little bit because at this point the movie's taken a bunch of turns. I'm thinking, all right, maybe they're going to go a different direction again with her brain being very active or whatever's going on. And they don't really do that. And I think it hurts my enjoyment of the movie. I like the discovery. I think it's interesting, but I just don't like where they take it. And I think that kind of hurts the film overall. Now, again, there's a lot of good in this set of scenes. Just as far as the way stuff is shot, I like that they go back to the autopsy room. You've kind of given Austin no choice but to figure out what the fuck is going on. So as much as I wish they had made me feel Emma's death a little more, I will say I think to move the story along, to him not be as distraught the entire time, kind of refocusing on Jane Doe and what her deal is, I think is important because like Brian said, you probably could have cut out Emma's death entirely and really not even had it in the film. Just because the whole focal point of this movie is what the fuck is up with this corpse. And there's a scene here, and I want to give the people who made this movie a lot of credit. Where I was 1,000, it's before he cuts her head open and scalps her like Nancy scalps. Shout out to Brad Pitt, the GOAT. Anyway, hey, you said you liked World War Z. I'm just saying. Anyway.
I would have liked it with David Arquette in it.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Dewey. Okay. Fair enough. But there's a scene right before he cuts her head open there that I was 99% sure she was going to pop up off the table. Like I mentioned earlier, full Undertaker style. And the first time I ever saw it, I'm like, yeah, here it comes. And it didn't come. But that's all I had. I think I like a lot of what they do. I just don't like the direction the film is going, especially upon a second and third watch, which was what I ended up doing. I watched it one time intently, and then I watched it one while I was doing again when I was doing a workout. So, but again, upon a couple rewatches, The direction they've taken, I'm just not a huge fan of. But I like some other stuff. So mixed bag in this set of scenes.
Fuck the jump scare. God, this is the worst one because they keep looking and peeking out the axe hole. I said axe hole, not asshole. And they keep peeking, and you know it's coming. Like this was the worst one of all of them. And then even when it got there, it wasn't even like a good one. It's just okay. You see this person whose face has been blown off. Cool. I did think it was cool, when they lit the body on fire and they put the fire out. Now, like you said, Brian, the rapid nature in which they put the fire out is a little ridiculous. But I like when they got the fire extinguished and there's no burn marks on the body. That's one of those oh shit, like holy shit moments.
Fantastic.
Oh, that was awesome. And then we get to the elevator. So the elevator scene pissed me off too, and it's more so to do with Emma's death. Now, I agree. With what you said when you're questioning, did we even need Emma's death? Because it achieves everything with or without it actually being Emma. But at this point, I really picked up on this movie is making its own rules. There are no rules about the powers of this Jane Doe or this entity that's controlling all this shit. Like, there's no screams. It's just Emma walking towards. But when we see it, we think it's one of the corpses. There's no indication at all that it's not a corpse. And then all of a sudden, after the axe is in, which, by the way, say what you will, my man Dick took that axe to the chest a lot better than Emma did. She whimpered a little bit. So Dick, when Dick got whacked, he went down. Now, something you mentioned also, Brian, you said, I'm not sure Emma would be out driving in these hurricane force winds, whatever. But if you'll pay attention to the ending of the movie, the radio says something that lets you know there were no hurricane force winds. The radio says another day of great weather. It's our fourth sunny day in a row. And I was like, oh, so none of that shit was real.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't catch that. So you're right. Gotcha.
That was another part at that point in the movie and the ending that I'm like, God damn, this movie's just making its own rules. I've had that same criticism with other movies that we reviewed. It's like, I feel like rules should be consistent. And I think that was just I don't know, with the Emma thing and the circumstances surrounding her death, I think it was very cheap. I hate to keep using that word, but it's just kind of like a cop-out way to invoke emotion from the audience. So like, okay, he killed his son's girlfriend. This is an emotional scene, but it really, like, you didn't need it. It's freaky, emotions are already being pulled. And then you get to the scene where they're discussing, the conversation where he's alluding to the fact that Austin's mom committed suicide, but we don't actually come out and say it. It's like, oh, she's living with that pain. I should have helped her. I should have picked up on it. Like, you don't have to explicitly say it, but I think that they could have done more though to make it apparent what happened. And
I mean, you don't have to cut it because it's a short movie. But if you did cut the Emma death, like, give more time to them kind of bonding in that elevator and giving you a little bit more backstory to this mom.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like you said too, Emma dead, and we kind of just like, fuck, my girlfriend died. All right, what are we gonna do next? It's like they got over it way too quickly. Yeah. And then the conversation between them in the elevator there, or when they're talking about the mom's death, like, it was kind of, the dialogue I didn't think was too great. I called her Ray, my Ray is Sunshine, but it stuck. Well, of course it stuck, dude. You're the one that gave her the nickname. If you keep calling her Ray, then it's gonna stick. But I don't know. That was kind of cheesy. Also, I didn't really like that. But then again, he has proven to be one of those cheesy dads, so maybe it's okay. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Then we go back and he cuts the skull open and he gets a part of the brain. So I didn't really love this either because it's kind of like they picked and choose what they looked at under the microscope, and it just so happens all the items they looked under the microscope are huge clues.
Mhm.
You know, you know, it just I would have liked it more if he looked at other stuff under the microscope and it's normal, or it wasn't this huge revelation. But everything he stuck under the fucking microscope was like this holy shit moment.
Good
Um,
point.
and the it was kind of, they kind of telegraphed it when you knew that when he went to it and he puts it under the microscope and then you see his face before he shows what's going on. It's like, okay, there's something abnormal here. There's probably some activity or something, you know, whatever. And then also the last thing I have here, you know, when he's like, there's some kind of energy keeping her alive. It's like, that line in particular, I didn't really like, because we clearly know that there's something going on with her. You didn't have to say that. You
Right.
didn't have, you know, we pick up on the fact that, yeah, you took her heart out. You cut her ribs open. You've picked around at her lungs and all this shit. Um, dug poison out of her stomach and all this shit. But we see the brain activity. You didn't have to spell it out to us like we're toddlers here. We knew there's something fucked up about this corpse. So it's just another one of those things. It's like, could have been done, done better, or phrased differently in the dialogue. I don't know, but we didn't really need it. And it's a good set of scenes, but not as good as the last by any stretch of the imagination. Then, like you guys, I think um, the best that this movie has to offer is behind it at this point.
All right, here's the ending. Austin folds the fabric over and they see the word Leviticus 2027. They read the verse that speaks on killing witches. The numerals are for 1693, New England, the Salem witch trials. Tommy says witches are a myth, young girls just falsely accused. They didn't hang or burn Jane, they tortured her. Tommy says, what if the ritual performed on an innocent accidentally created the very thing we're trying to destroy? What if she can feel everything we've done to her? She wants us to feel it too, as Tommy reveals his wounds. That's why she's keeping us alive. This is her revenge, her ritual. Austin asks, why us? Tommy says, we're on her path, that's all. No one could have seen what we have seen. She's still suffering, and it won't stop until and then we hear banging on the door now. Tommy whispers to Jane, I won't fight you, but please don't hurt him. Let me help you. The lights dim and Tommy's wrists and ankles begin to shatter. Jane Doe's ankles and wrists restore within her, and her wounds heal up and her organs heal. Her blood flows back into her, and her eyes become brown again. Tommy sees a knife on the ground and tries to reach for it. Please, he asks Austin. Austin takes a knife and finishes his father off with a stab to the chest. Austin weeps as he looks at his dead father. The lights come back on and the radio plays the rock music again. We now hear Sheriff Burke calling for Austin. Austin walks towards the sheriff's voice and the sound of chainsaws removing the tree, and we hear like trucks working. He tries to open the door, but no success. He says it's stuck as the sheriff yells, open up, and now he sings, open up and let the sunshine in. Austin hears a bell, and his dad's corpse scares him, causing him to fall to his death below at the bottom of the stairs. Next day, the sheriff and officers check out the place and are puzzled all over again. It's as if the autopsy never even got started, and no obvious signs of forced entry again. Now the radio says fourth straight day of sunshine. Jane manipulated the weather, trapping them. Sheriff says to get the body out his county and over to VCU. They load Jane's body into the van. She's driven down the road, and the radio changes to the open up your heart and let the sunshine in song again as we get another shot of Jane Doe's body. We now see her toe wiggle, indicating she's still alive, and the end credits roll. All right, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I just think the direction that they took with the last set of scenes and then this ending, it took the movie to me from elite to just okay, not just pretty good in my eyes. I definitely don't like Austin's death. It's the worst one in the movie to me, and I think that I mean, hey, I'm all for unhappy endings, but to me, it just made Brian Cox's sacrifice was Tommy. I'm sorry, not Brian Cox. His sacrifice not really even mean anything. I mean, he took on the entity or whatever he did. He took its injuries so it could heal back. I don't even know what the fuck really even was happening there. But whatever he did it for his son, and you've got this character development that works all throughout this movie because of their relationship. So let it mean something. Like, I don't know. It ended up not meaning shit because, he just fell off the stairs. Like, oh, damn, man. Come on. Anyway, something else I will say that could have happened here that I expected, but was pleasantly surprised that they didn't do was flashbacks. Like They could have shown us really anything from Tommy and his wife or the witch's past, but we didn't get that. And the movie lets you just get that information via dialogue and what they're finding. And I really liked that and I respected that a lot. I thought that really worked very well here. So that's really all I had on the ending. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think the ending falls really flat. I kind of liked some of the discovery stuff with the fabric and the Leviticus verse and all that, but I just think we get a little bit too. This is just my taste in film, so it's up for interpretation. But we get a little too ghost hokey movie to me with some of this, where she's basically transferring her internal scars over to Tommy, and I just think that's a little. I think I would have liked to see him have a more impactful death, a better death. I just wasn't a big fan of how all that went down, and to make Austin be the one to actually kill him off, I think was emotional. I'm tied into this father-son thing, but I think again, I just would have liked to have seen something without the transfer of evil or whatever you call that. I wasn't a huge fan of that because, again, you mentioned how we get Austin's death, which is Tommy kind of showing up with gray eyes or whatever, scaring the piss out of him, and he falls on the floor. I'm not a fan of that. I think it's bad. I would have kept Austin alive, honestly, but they wanted the end scene to look like the beginning scene. So I do like that part. Like I mentioned in the opening, I like that aspect of the end, but I just wasn't a huge fan of the direction they decided to go. And by the way, I sit here and say that I don't know what direction you could go. Maybe one of you have a better idea in your closing about where you would have taken this movie outside of being a witch. But I just think it fell a little flat for me. I will say the very last scene we get is a really good creepy horror movie scene where the song comes on in the coroner's van. I think that was pretty creepy, pretty interesting. But outside of that, it's a mixed bag. I just would have liked to see them go a little bit of a different direction with the Jane Doe character and what she actually was. So some good, some bad, but I think the ending falls flat. And this movie had a lot of promise to me. So maybe that's why I'm a little bit harder on it.
Yeah. The ending's a mixed bag for sure for me as well. So I like the witch theory. It's a different witch theory than we typically get. So we just did The Witch, and that's typically what you get with witch movies, especially if they're gonna have tie-ins to the Salem witch trials and all that. This is really cool because most of those movies never answer questions about, well, if they're really witches, what happened? 200 years they're going to live forever. What happens? This is kind of it's an interesting take on it. I like that, but I do have problems with, especially like you said, Brian, with Tommy giving himself up and being that sacrifice, being the good father. Take me, don't hurt the boy. Daddy, please don't take the girl. It just didn't really make a lot of sense to have him sacrifice himself if it's going to end like it did. Because also it's like, why was she toying with him this whole time? If
I have a theory on that.
If the movie's going to end with them both dead, then why keep stringing them along in the way that she does? She lets him feel like he's doing this noble thing. Take me, don't hurt the boy. And then he dies. I don't know. That kind of bothered me. It's very emotional though when Tommy dies at the moment, because you're like, damn, Austin just had to kill his father, who just killed his girlfriend, and he's going to have to live with this forever. Little do we know that, forever is only going to be a couple more minutes. But I did think though, it could have been awesome, because when he hears the sheriff's voice and he thinks he's being rescued, and then the sheriff starts quoting that fucking song. I think that's awesome. I thought that was, because it's like a oh shit moment. That creeped me out when that happened, especially when you hear the bell and you turn around, Tommy's standing right there. That got me a little bit. That was like, oh shit. but him falling off the steps is kind of a lame way to, pay that off. So I like the car, didn't like the destination. But yeah, like I said, why was she toying with them if they're good both? Because now they're both dead and everyone's dead. Why? And then, like you mentioned in your breakdown there, Nico, the line about 4 straight days of sunny weather is another one of those revelations. Like, oh shit! So the door was only being held shut by her, not by any tree or anything. That was a cool revelation. I did like how they enter the crime scene, and it's very similar to the opening crime scene. Like, you got dead bodies here, and you got a corpse, and it looks like they're trying to get out. I like that quote that they did that really ties it back to the opening scene. And I really fucking like the ride out of there. When the corpse is in the van, the guy's riding down the road, the radio starts changing, the toe twitch and everything. I like this because it doesn't allude to a sequel, and I don't think this movie needs a sequel, but it does leave it open to where in your mind, this could go on. This could be an endless cycle forever. This corpse is going to just keep making its way down the road and claiming victims left and right. And I like when movies do that. So the ending did have some redeeming qualities. It's just really a disappointment, though, in the grand scheme of things.
By the way, I got your Daddy Don't Take a Girl reference.
What's that?
Great song. Tearjerker.
Hey, I am glad you said that, though, because upon this most recent rewatch, when the movie ended, I'm like, part of me wishes they'd have found a way to get rid of this damn corpse because this is going to keep going on forever and ever. It's literally what I said. So I hope they don't do a sequel because I don't know if it's necessary. But, I mean, if someone got a hold of it that could, use the right material and make it good, of course I'd watch it. I always want horror movies to do well so we can keep doing this show because sometimes I like to cover shitty movies. Sometimes I like to cover good movies. Depends on the mood.
I don't want to see a sequel to this one personally because the mystery's out of it.
I'm with you on that.
My only theory is about Tommy sacrificing himself is, when you get that glimpse where he's like reaching for the knife, I think he's trying to cut his tongue out to finish the ritual, but instead Austin kills him so he can't finish it. That's just my only theory because, Jane, you have to feel what she felt to fulfill her ritual or what. I don't know. That's just my only guess.
But what was the end game to the ritual? Was it like her coming back to life fully? Like what was the end game?
Maybe so because you saw like everything healing up in her.
Color restoring to her eyes, everything healed up. But then
the only thing we didn't see was her mouth open, with the tongue being restored. So, but then again, do you have to light him on fire too? So I mean, I don't know.
When they load the body back up, the eyes are gray again, though. So it's like, what the hell's going on here? But but again, you got to fulfill the ritual or whatever. But if she could just kill them whenever, because that's what she basically did to Austin. It's like, why did she string it out this long? I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely open for a lot of interpretation. Any final thoughts, or we just jump into social media questions?
Well, the only thing I want to do is like to answer Mike's question about what I would have done differently. I wouldn't have gone the witch route. Probably would have kept it more satanic demon route because that scared me. Like the first half of the movie, I would have done more of that. I would have gone less of the showing the zombies and everything. Would have just kept it more the demonic route. And I mean, because I think to me that whole ritual part is what takes away from the movie from me. But that's just what I would have done different. And no,
fair.
And no Emma scene either.
I agree.
I like the witch route. Go ahead, Ryan. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, or have him demonically possessed, like killing him or killing her or something. And then, it's just, I don't know.
I like the witch route, honestly. I just don't. The only parts of this movie I don't like is like the tropey, hokey stuff that we discussed earlier. I just don't feel like it was necessary. Yeah. But I mean, if you got other dead bodies there, might as well utilize them. All right. Sean Irwin on Twitter asked, just watched this yesterday. My question is, why did Brian Cox just accept everything so quickly and then still call bullshit on the witch thing? My only answer is kind of like he said, he just, there were no witches. They were just all falsely accused. That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, it's
Well,
not
and
like I know his religion.
I didn't take it as because they'd already had that conversation about in the whenever he was attacked in the bathroom. Like I think that at that point when he said it to me, I didn't take that as he really didn't believe it. It was one of those I can't fucking believe that this is going on. Like there's no way. Like him trying to
Yeah.
convince himself like there's no way this is real again. But that's just why I took it.
It was just weird to me though. Like I get what Sean's saying though, because everything he's like, oh yep. She's bad. We got to get the fuck out of here. And then he's like,
Yeah.
the witch. He's like, no, that's impossible. It's like, bitch, this whole fucking movie's impossible. What are you talking about?
We literally just saw hieroglyphics on the inside of her body. I think it's time to get the fuck out of here. She's a witch.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's knock out.
Hieroglyphics, by the way. I will speak correctly this evening. God damn it.
All right, we'll knock out Instagram comments real quick. Danny CNAB said, I've seen this once around time that it came out. What I like most about this movie was it was mostly shot in one room. I find movies that don't jump around between different settings are able to keep my attention more. Definitely going to need a rewatch before the review. Definitely rewatch it. I recommend that. Alex1 commented, finally got around to watching this gem in October, and boy was I a fool to have waited so long. This was easily the scariest new to me film I watched this spooky season. The reason I waited so long, you ask? I can never see Emil Hirsch and not have my brain scream, go Speed Racer, go. Fun fact, I've not seen Speed Racer.
That's not a fun fact. We assume that.
Have y'all seen it?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
I was a big Speed Racer fan when I was a kid, so I had to.
That was a little behind. It was a little bit behind my time.
Speed Racer came out in like the 60s.
Well,
Not one with Emil Hirsch in it.
Wait, I
Emil
thought Brian.
Hirsch was in a recent one.
Wait, I thought Brian was in middle school in the '60s. What happened?
Fuck you, Mike.
I was talking about. I had to watch the Speed Racer movie when it came out because the original cartoon. I was a big fan when I was a kid, and it came out in like the 60s. I just remember watching it on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, I watched the cartoon a little bit. My man Jolly Saint Nick 96 commented, this movie is terrifying, especially from a lead actress who doesn't even move or have a single line in the entire film. Jane Doe's presence throughout the movie kind of makes it like just that stoic look the whole movie. And Joe Black Tattoos, I've never seen this one and I wasn't going to watch it, but based on this picture, I might have to throw it on. And looking forward to the review, guys. Appreciate it, Joe and Danny. We really appreciate y'all. Fun facts? Y'all got any fun facts? Knock those out real quick.
I don't
have any.
All right, I'll read off the ones I got. Stephen King said of the film The Autopsy of Jane Doe, visceral horror to rival Alien and early Cronenberg. Watch it, but not alone. Alien's boring.
A little bit dramatic there.
Alien is a snooze fest. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh my god!
Whenever we do review that one,
You should be.
Aliens is great though. Aliens is great. Alien will put you to sleep. Owen Catherine Kelly was the first person interviewed for the role. Andre Overdahl, I guess is how you say it, because it's got the O with the slash through it, said they performed further interviews afterward, but he instantly knew she was right for the role. I think that's awesome. Just going to briefly touch on this. Owen Kelly spent around 8 hours a day for 5 weeks lying naked on an autopsy table. Before filming, she said she spent a lot of time thinking, how am I going to be nude and still in what will probably be a room full of men? Her background as a model helped her cope. I just think that's awesome. Imagine just laying still for 8 hours a day for 5 weeks. I couldn't imagine. In the last one,
dude, that's worse than Robert Englund in the makeup chair. That sounds awful.
Oh, that's terrible. And then she had some days, she had very intense prosthetics attached to her and all that. Right. I remember listening to that in some of the interviews they'd done. And the last one I got is just the director. He said his favorite scene in the film was the scene in the elevator when they discussed the death of the mother. He said, I only placed the camera, and he watched a fantastic performance by Brian Cox and Emil Hirsch. And the scene he was most proud of as a director was the build-up to the reveal of the symbols beneath Jane Doe's skin, as he stated at the festival Monsters of Film in Stockholm 2016. That's all I got.
So this movie was made for roughly in between $1 to $2 million, depending on where you get your information from. Wow. So that's around the budget. Made $6 million domestic box office. So, but this movie had a second life, obviously, with the run on Netflix. and now I believe it's on Shudder as well. So this movie has had kind of a not cult following quite, but you could almost put it in that category. Very well known among the horror community for being creative and innovative, and I think I'm glad we got the chance to review it because we're obviously going to cover Saw 2. First of all, Saw 2 is my favorite Saw, and I would have just been flowers the whole episode, Nico. But I'm glad we got a chance to do something a little different, a little unique, especially coming off of the third film in the franchise last week, which no disrespect to Scream 3, but Scream 3 is Scream 3. So I thought this was a lot of fun to do, man. A lot of fun to go back and revisit the movie because I'd only seen it once, and I thought that it was a really good pick.
All right. Yeah. Y'all want to jump into favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating?
Do it.
All right. Who wants to go first tonight?
I can go ahead and
Matt,
go
you pick.
since I've been gone or missed a couple episodes due to sickness.
Guess who's back again.
So, as far as my favorite kill, it's really I didn't really have a favorite kill necessarily. I would say Tommy's, just because the emotion that it invokes, but at the same time, I just bitched and complained about what was the point of the sacrifice. But it was very emotional for Austin to have to do that, and so it made you feel something. Least favorite kill is actually going to be Emma for me because it's like I don't know. It's just she's walking down the hallway and sees him wielding an axe and doesn't think to yell out, and if she does yell out, we can't hear it. And that's what I was talking about. I got frustrated with the movie just making up its rules as it goes. That being said, though, the movie did have a lot of redeeming qualities. It is original. It is a quick and easy watch. The acting is great between Hirsch and Cox. It's one of those movies that I can appreciate the creativity. I can appreciate the lighting. There are things that I don't like the cheap outs that it takes sometimes, the walking through the smoke and all that bullshit and all the jump scares really took it down a lot. But that being said, it's not a bad movie at all. I'm going to give the movie a 6.25.
Okay. I can go ahead and go. Let Brian and Nico close it out. Yeah, so I had a hard time kind of picking my favorite kill because I don't really like any of the kills. But as far as the one that didn't make me kind of go, okay. I even though I think her death is inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, I guess Emma's my favorite kill. My least favorite is obviously Austin because that is just terrible way for a main character to go out. That really bugged me. That kind of brings the movie down for me a little bit. Okay. Really creative film, really unique film. We touched on that in the open. Thought it was a fun one to revisit. I'm glad the movie was made, honestly, because it provides something very, very, for lack of a better term, we already said it, different than a lot of other horror movies out there. I may not have liked the direction that it ended up going, but I thought the movie does so much right in the first 2.5 acts. It just kind of falls off towards the end to me. I don't know what else you could have done, but I would have gone in a different direction. So all that being said, a lot of good acting, lighting, cinematography, direction. I think all that's really good. The script is creative. Great job on that. So it gets bonus points for being an original story, doing something different. All that being said, I ended up giving this movie a 6.75.
Okay. I'll go ahead and go. My favorite kill, for all the reasons that Dustin said, I completely agree with, is Tommy. And I already mentioned my least favorite kill was Austin. This movie is an easy watch at an hour and 26 minutes. I mean, it does a lot that I mentioned I didn't care for, but it does more that I did like, and it did it all in this way where it accomplished all of the storytelling through just an autopsy and their own discoveries. I thought that was so different, and I really liked it a lot. I actually rated this movie a 6.5.
All right, I'll go ahead and go and wrap this up. Favorite kill, I chose Tommy just because I like the visuals of, the wrist and the ankle snapping. It does kind of feel like he sacrificed himself for nothing, but I kind of gave my theory on that already. Least favorite kill is definitely Austin. I mean, I got no problem with this being, a non-happy ending movie, but I just didn't like the way they shot him falling down the stairs and the way he fell. I just, they could have killed him off in a better way, I guess. Low key, this has been my third movie in a row about a witch or involving a witch. Kind of noticed that. Didn't know I like movies about witches.
Starting to get a little worried about what's
Hocus Pocus soon come.
No, that's not coming. Not until maybe next year. Because we've already got our January picks picked out, and I'm excited for that. But I like the originality of this movie. This movie creeped me the hell out the first time I watched it. I think we all agree. Brian and is it Emil Hirsch? Is that how you say his name? I don't want to keep butchering the guy's name.
Yeah.
Did a great job, both of them. I really don't have many nitpicks of the movie except the traditional horror movie stuff they added to it, and because I like the direction they took with Jane. I like all of that. I just hated the jump scares, the unnecessary getting attacked in the smoky hallway. I just didn't care for all that. I love the fact that Jane Doe literally controls her environment. I really disagree with Dustin on the whole making up the rules thing. I think Jane Doe makes all the rules. I think she does. I think she controls her environment, everything around her, the weather, the people, everything. But overall, I do have problems with it. They had a really good movie. Then they just tried to add the traditional horror tropes I just did not like. And they get worse every time I watch it, but I still really like it. I gave it 8.25.
Okay. So that gives us a composite score of 6.9375.
And I got IMDb pulled up right now. With 109,280 reviews, they gave it a 6.8. So we're basically right there with IMDb.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Hey, they know what they're talking about when it agrees with us.
That's right.
Exactly.
And another reason I picked this movie is just because I feel like it doesn't get a lot of attention that it should. Like Mike said, Saw 2 would have just been a love fest from all of us. Because that's definitely one of my top 2 or 3 favorite Saw movies. So all of us would have just been saying how much we loved it the whole movie.
Saw 3D?
Absolutely not. That's arguably the worst one.
That is bad, but hey, I'll say about Saw 3 the same thing I said about Scream 3. And that's the worst movie in your franchise. That's not terrible. It's not so bad.
That's fair. Appreciate you guys reviewing the movie with me.
Is Saw 2 the one with Donnie Wahlberg?
Yes.
So that's my
Donnie
favorite.
Wahlberg is in
absolutely
2, in
fantastic.
3, in 4.
Well, the first ones. The first one he was in.
The one where he's a cop.
Yeah.
He's got the accent. He's a cop. I'm a cop in every movie. My name is Donnie.
Dude, Saw 2 has one of the best twist endings ever. I love that twist ending. But we'll get to that when we review it. Any final thoughts, guys, before we shout out our blood donors and Dustin announces his pick for next week?
No. Let's do it.
Hey, Dustin, if you look confused, the movie was mentioned in this episode by Michael Settle. It involved a man and a dog. I'll leave it at that.
Damn, I forgot. I made this pick.
Let me shout out the blood donors real quick, then we'll announce your pick. Our camp level reoccurring is Clayton J., Nina, Michelle Merza, Andrew Ferguson, Carrie Adams, the Horror Movie Crew podcast, and Alex Seligson. Our camp counselor reoccurring is Hunter Nelson, Karen, Shan Petrusevich, Dennis Kennedy, and Edwin Hernandez Gunn. Our legendary blood donors, we still have film reviews to do for. I'm looking forward to them as Missy Wall and Joe Larson. And final girl, we have Danny Cnaps. Appreciate y'all helping us pay for this podcast. Like I said in previous episodes, you can make a podcast for free, but I don't think it'll be good. That's just my opinion. If you want something to be good, you got to put your blood, sweat, and your money into it. That's just my opinion. All right, Dustin, announce your pick for next week, and we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, I made these picks a while in advance, and so I was like, "Damn, I forgot what I even put on the calendar all those weeks ago." But Mike brought this movie up. I think that it's a phenomenal take on zombie films. So let's do it. I Am Legend on the docket for next week.
Love it.
Okay. I really do enjoy the film. I have a strong critique, but I think it's really good. I can't wait to talk about it.
I've only seen it once.
Also,
we'll see how I feel about it on a rewatch.
Stay tuned for Christmas Eve. Something coming to your podcast feed. Something special.
That's right. We got a bonus coming up. Well, we've already shared the December graphics. So there's no need to keep it a secret. we'll be
true.
reviewing Krampus.
Krampus.
2015? So stay
2015,
tuned for our graphic. We're gonna be posting. So if you want to ask us questions, how we feel about it, all that. But looking forward to reviewing Krampus as well. That's an interesting movie.
You're talking about the episode of The Office where Dwight Schrute came in, right? That's that Krampus.
Yeah,
no, although that would be freaking hilarious.
probably would be better. Go ahead.
Oh, Brian, I'm not even saying I disagree. Just found it interesting. That's all.
No, I agree.
Just want to thank all our fans. We really appreciate y'all. We're almost through 2021. This has been a great year for us, podcast wise. Episodes been booming. We're growing like crazy. We love to see it. Go into us into 2022 and let's take it even further. Appreciate y'all. Y'all be good.
Just want to remind everybody.